Hello and welcome to today's lesson. It's been a little while since I've done a live lesson, so I'm really excited about this. And this is, well, it's a vocabulary lesson, but I think it's also a bit of a cultural lesson as well. So I'd say some cultural vocabulary because what we're going to talk about is, well, I have a list of words for you, and that list is going to be talking about the word of the year. So from 2010 to the present, 2021, we're going to talk about the word of the year for each of those years. And that's why I said it could also be a little bit of a cultural lesson, in which case I'm talking about American culture. But I do want to say a quick hello to those who have joined us. Hello, Gustav. Good to see you. Thank you for the hug. I appreciate it. Awesome. Lali, Takayo, great to have you with me today. Angela, Deepa. As we go through this, I'll give a few more shout outs because I want you guys to, again, this is interactive English. I want you to participate in the lesson and try to guess the word for each year. And of course, I'll give you a little hint to help you out. So let me first let you know, where this is coming from, because you're not always going to have the same information. This word list I'm taking from the American Dialect Society. And like I said, there are different lists. I think online dictionaries have their own word of the year. Oxford does. Macmillan has a word of the year. And maybe in the future I'll talk about some of those because they are different words. This is from the American Dialect Society, and because of that, I told you that these words are a bit more related to the United States. So it's things that were going on in the US at that time, things that were popular, and that's why these words were chosen, which is also why I said it's a little bit of a cultural lesson because we're talking about vocabulary that is relevant in the US at that time. So here are the criteria as far as, them deciding which word to choose. So I know this is small, so I'll just let you know. It says demonstrably, talking about words that are demonstrably new or newly popular in the year in question, widely or prominently used in the year in question, indicative or reflective of the popular discourse. Discourse is just referring to the conversation that people are having in their everyday lives, and not a peeve or a complaint about overuse or misuse. I don't know if I agree with that last one. I think when there are words that become popular, I think there are definitely people out there that complain that it's being overused or they get tired of hearing it. So I don't know. This is their criteria, though. So let's begin with 2010. Okay, I want you to think all the way back to 2010. I was in my early 30s at that point. But what do you think was the word of the year in 2010, or what may have been? And I just mentioned that this is from, talking about the US, but this word I think is relevant all across the world. I think at this time it was a word that it was becoming, more and more popular. And I think nowadays we use this word quite often in everyday conversation, or we're talking about it. It's part of our lives now, I think, for the vast majority of people. And I'll give you a hint. Think technology, okay? So that's your hint. Technology, phone. Okay, can you think of any word related to that? Technology, phone. I know once I tell you the word, you're familiar with it, you know it, we use it a lot today. Okay, no, not wax. I told you this is going to be a little challenging, maybe. So the word that I'm talking about is app. So in 2010, that was the word of the year in 2010. Of course, you know that apps. That's short for application program for a computer or phone operating system. I think now most of the time when people think of apps, you think of apps on your phone. very common. If you're using a smartphone, I'm sure you have apps on there. Somebody just pointed out, like WhatsApp. Yeah. So it is kind of interesting to put this in perspective and think about, well, this word nowadays, which I think is pretty common, back then in 2010, it was relatively new, that this was all just coming out and it was becoming more and more popular. So again, a lot has changed over the years. One thing I will say, again, people think like, hey, I want to use an app in order to learn and improve my English. I think you can do that, but just to give a quick little plug, if you really want to improve your English skills, especially improve your speaking skills, I did want you guys to let you know that enrollment for my speaking course is now open. You can use right there that code SPEAK20 to get $20 off the cost. The course it's about helping you speak confidently, clearly, naturally. There is a link down in the description that'll take you to this course page. You can learn a lot more information about the course, what's included in it, as well as down here, the class times that are available. So please check that out if you are interested in practicing and improving your speaking skills. And yeah, you get to speak with me, directly with me. So check that link out down below in the description. And I'll also include the link here in the chat in case you're interested. So let's go ahead and look at the next one. Okay, so we're talking about 2011. And again, I know that it's difficult to think of, well, what was going on back then. There's that link I just put in the chat in case you're interested. So 2011, I'll give you a hint of what was going on. A few years before, you had that the housing collapse, and there was some of the big banks, they went under, they failed. And by the time 2011 rolled around, a lot of people were angry about how that situation was handled. And a lot of the, some of the banks and other big businesses getting taxpayer money. So there was a lot of anger in the United States at this time. And there was a movement. And that movement was called Wall Street. So getting you to try to think a little bit about, 10 years ago, what was happening, the history. And that's your hint. That movement was called Wall Street in 2011. Do you have any guesses? I think when I show you the word, I think many of you are going to be familiar with the word, with the meaning. So the word for 2011 is occupy. So to occupy something, I think you know what it means is like you are taking over this area, your presence is there. In this case, it was really referring to that Occupy protest movement. And the name of the movement was Occupy Wall Street. And again, people were very upset with Wall Street because these businesses had gotten a lot of money. And yeah, people were very unhappy about that. So that's what was going on there in 2011. So let's move in to 2012. All right. And I'll give you a hint because I know this can be challenging. So in 2012, 1 year after a lot of that Occupy Wall Street was going on, let me see, because I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the hint. Okay, so this is another word that, well, think about Twitter. That's my hint for you, Twitter. What word became popular because of Twitter? And it's a word that you see, well, okay, it's a symbol. Now I'm going to try to make it a lot easier for you. A symbol. Again, so this is related to technology. Twitter, I think, starting out, becoming more and more popular. And people just started using this word a lot more. It was coming up, even in conversations. And I know that some people did not like hearing this word in conversation. So not social media. Again, Twitter is a form of social media, but this word became popular because of Twitter. And it's also, again, part of social media in general. Yes, Vivian, Caroline, Forlearn, close, not a GIF, Harry. The correct answer is, like I said, is a hashtag. It's like I'll just read it. It's a word or phrase preceded by the symbol. That's the symbol, is a hashtag, used on Twitter to mark a topic or make a commentary. So it really, using that hashtag would basically really earmark it as part of a topic in general. And you refer to it as hashtag something. So this is what became very popular, or what is labeled as the word of the year in 2012 was the hashtag. So let's move on. What do you think? 2013. So I don't think you guys, I don't know if you guys, you're not going to guess this. It's not even a way that I use this word. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it is. But the word of 2013, and maybe it's, again, capturing a little bit of pop culture, is the word because, but not using it as giving like in the normal sense. It's using it introducing like a noun or adjective. And I think a lot of people would end up using it in spoken English. And you would say, they give you some examples down there. Like, for example, like, well, because reasons. All right. Saying like, oh, you have reasons for something, or because awesome. So you're saying like, because something is awesome, because awesome. And again, I think this was more spoken English, the way that people are using it, perhaps younger generations. I never really used the word because like this, but this is what they had down for 2013. I know some people put in selfie. That's a good guess. I actually think that would have been a better choice, selfie, for that one. 2014. Let's keep moving. So in 2014, this, like I told you, a lot of this is related to what was going on in the United States. This was another movement that was taking place in the United States. In 2014, it gained a lot of popularity. It became a lot of, part of a larger conversation. It's still been going on over the years. And even in the last couple of years, it's still, being talked about, coming up from time to time. But this was the word of a phrase talking about another movement that started in the United States around this time, 2014. Any guesses? I thought maybe talking about that. Case Pride, that's a good guess. I think Pride has been, around and more popular for a lot longer. Think about, I said it's been around recently, and that was with the George Floyd. So the movement that I'm referring to is Black Lives Matter. So in 2014, this is when it came out, when some black people were killed at the hands of police. In particular, talking about Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and Eric Gardner in Staten Island. There were others as well, but this is when that movement, Black Lives Matter, became a lot more well-known. And like I said, there have been other instances over the years in which this has become more of a topic of conversation. Most recently was with the death of George Floyd. And again, this was like front and center part of the conversation. So in 2014, this is it. But a lot of you guys had, some good guesses in talking about like Pride, Me Too, another. I forget what year. I think that was actually after 2014, I think. But yeah, I like, good job. Gustav, you got it. Ariane, Sarah. So yeah, it seems like again, it's something that comes up in conversation. 2015. So your hint for 2015, again, this is, I don't know how they chose this, but this was a word, Actually, I'll tell you what it is. You tell me what the word is. It is a gender, it is a singular gender neutral pronoun. It's a word that I've used just in casual conversation for a long time. I don't know why it has kind of been rejected by a lot of I think dictionaries. English technically doesn't have a singular gender neutral pronoun except for this word. And in 2015, it was labeled the word of the year. Most of you think about it as more of a as a plural pronoun. Yes. Who is it? I see one. Bongku. Excellent. Yes, I'm talking about the word they. So this was the word of the year in 2015. They. Talking about not a plural pronoun in referring to they as a group of people, but as a gender neutral singular pronoun for a known person. So let me give you an example of that. So what I mean, and I said I've so many people use this in spoken English. If you were to tell me like, hey, my friend is getting ready to take a vacation, and you say my friend is taking a vacation. Well, I don't know if your friend is a man or a woman, but if I'm asking a question, I would say, oh, where are they going? And I'm using they in that context as a gender neutral singular pronoun. If you say my friend, you're talking about one person. My friend's taking a vacation. Oh, where are they going? And in asking that question, I'm using they as a gender neutral singular pronoun. And it's very common. But yes, so they in that context can be singular as well. And again, I don't know why there's been some pushback of like, no, we need to come up with a new word. And some people have tried to come up with new words like thine or thon, and it just hasn't worked out. So let's move to 2016. Again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the word of the year. We started in 2010, and I'll show you those at the end. And we're going up to the present. It's a vocabulary lesson. It's a little bit of a cultural lesson as well. Think about 2016, what was going on. Okay, so of course there was an election in the year of 2016. And I will go ahead and tell you as we get into the next few. I will say the American Dialect Society, I feel like they're probably a bit more progressive because they're talking about their choices. And, Trump was a very talked about person in 2016 and beyond. So some of the words and phrases are related to politics. This one in 2016, I'm not so sure. I'm just assuming that it is. I've often heard people talk about it in the context of politics and what's going on in society in general. I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't know if anybody is going to just guess this. They chose to dumpster fire. It's 2016 word of the year. Obviously it's a phrase, but in case you didn't know this, you can use dumpster fire to refer to, like it says, a disastrous or chaotic situation. So instead of saying, well, this is chaotic, you could say, well, it's a dumpster fire. And in this case, you're using it as a noun. So chaotic would be an adjective, but if you say something is a dumpster fire, you're using it as a noun, but it's referring to a situation that's just terrible. So that's what I mean. I think maybe they're referring to politics in a way that in 2016, the political situation in the U.S., it was a dumpster fire. I'm not sure exactly what else was going on that they may be referring to, but like I said, the reason why I think it's relating to politics is because I think people will talk about politics and use this word and be like, well, the situation with the government, it's an absolute dumpster fire. So hopefully maybe this phrase is new for some of you. And it's more common in spoken English to say something is a dumpster fire. I don't want to give away a hint, but 2017. Okay. This is definitely related to politics, definitely related to Donald Trump. What do you think was the word of the year in 2017? Somebody actually gave it to us already. Somebody was they got a little ahead, 1 year ahead. But the word or the phrase is actually in there. So in 2017, it was a phrase, definitely related to politics, definitely related to Trump. I told you somebody had already thought about it. They thought it was 2016, just 1 year off. But yes, excellent. So, Gustav, you got the right answer. It was in 2017, though. Sarah, Vivian, Eddie, Lolly, perfect. So the phrase that I'm talking about is fake news. And it's one that has, it's stuck around over the years. You still hear people talking about it and using it. So it's referring to, it's trying to, this is what I would say. I'll give you my opinion about it. People would say fake news talking about disinformation or bad news or bad information. Often I think that people use it in the context when they don't like the news that they hear, even if it's true or real, they try to discredit it the same way Trump would do and say, oh, it's fake news. I don't like what I'm hearing. I don't like what you're saying. I'm just going to call it fake news. And I actually think that's how people more commonly use it, is used to try to discredit real news by just saying it's fake. But this is something that you would hear Trump use all the time, talking about fake news. So it makes sense why this was chosen as the word of the year in 2017. 2018. This is another one. It's related to politics. It's not one that I feel like I wasn't really even that familiar with it. I was familiar with the situation. It's referring to what was going on at the U.S.-Mexico border during this time. I told you, I think the American Dialect Society choosing these words maybe a bit more progressive and, again, framing it more around politics. But when Trump was in office, I think politics was definitely a big part of the conversation in the United States in general. So I told you this is a phrase that is related to what was going on the U.S.-Mexico border at this time. So I'll just go ahead and tell you, they're talking about tender age shelters, camps, or facilities. And what this is this was the phrase that they tried to use when they were like basically taking kids that came across from the border, or if people were coming into the country illegally, they would take the children away and they would put them in these shelters. And they tried to word it like, oh, it's a tender age shelter or a tender age camp, trying to give it a nice name, even though it did not look good at all. So that was a good guess. I think some people mentioned wall. That's a good guess as far as conversation, things that were happening at that time. But this is what they chose as phrase of the year 2018. Let's look at 2019. 2019 is less about Trump and politics, but more just about society. And again, this is what trying to be, I think the ADS, the American Dialect Society, trying to be a little more progressive and the choices that they're making with these words or phrases. This would have to do more with, I think, the topic of trans and how people identify, which gender they identify with. So I know some people putting in COVID. You guys a little, not 2019, getting a little ahead. In 2019, I told you it was more, I think, related to trans, and the gender that people would identify with. So what I'm referring to, what they chose are the my pronouns. And when they say my pronouns, they're talking about the pronouns that somebody would request that others refer to them as. And sometimes I didn't really notice this as much, but I know in certain social media profiles, people would put something and then they'd put their pronouns. They'd put like she, her. And basically what's that saying is that they would like people to address them with those pronouns, she or her, or again, he or him. And those are the pronouns that people are asking people to identify them as. So this was 2019. 2020, some of you had already put it in there. I think in 2020, it was not that long ago. I think everybody knows the horrible situation in 2020 that basically consumed the entire planet. People had already put it in there. I said, like, yeah, you're getting a little ahead of yourselves. But yes. So before, who else had it? Sleepwalker, Bong talked about it. Yes, Sleepwalker, Case, Angela, Ava. We're talking about COVID. Short for COVID-19, given to the disease caused by the infection from the novel coronavirus. So that, I guess you could say in it. I'm trying to think when it first came out. In 2019, I believe in China is when people were starting to kind of start talking about it. But I feel like internationally, it wasn't until really early 2020 that it ended up consuming the media, consuming our lives. And then I think it was around in March of 2020, those lockdowns started and countries were locking down. So that was the word of the year in 2020, which makes sense based on their criteria, words that are popular, that are used a lot. And then 2021. Let's go back to politics. Okay, in the United States, we're going back to politics. Think about politically in the United States. What big event happened in 2021? It happened at the very beginning of 2021. And it's left a really big scar on American politics. So this is, again, this is a word related to that. That's your hint. It's related to politics, obviously related to Trump. Happened at the very beginning of 2021, and it was a very sad day. So I think probably you might be thinking, you might know the situation. Maybe you're trying to think of a word related to that situation. But the word, which again, if you didn't know it, this could be a new word for some of you, many of you. The word is insurrection. So it's referring to on January 6th, the attack on the Capitol building when they had that Stop the Steal protest, and then they went, they marched right down to the Capitol, clashed with the Capitol Police, broke inside, and it was a dumpster fire, to bring that word back up. It was absolutely a dumpster fire. So again, 2021 related to politics, related to Trump, insurrection. And again, this is, if this is a word you didn't know, then that's what it means. An insurrection is a violent attempt to take control of the government. And you'd say it is an insurrection. So I'm kind of curious, in the chat or even in the comments, if you're watching this later, my question would be, what do you think? What do you think is going to be the word of 2022? What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat, or let me know in the comments. I know we're not even halfway through the year, but if there's a word right now that you might think is like popular now in 2022, people are using it a lot, it's relevant to what's going on in the world. What do you think? What do you think would be a good word for 2022? I told you I'd review a little bit. So here, in case you joined us a little late, these are the words of the year. Here's 2010 to 2015. App, which is part of technology, very common word today. Occupy, I mentioned, was part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Hashtag, also related to tech, Twitter specifically, because it was just the usage in spoken English, like, oh, because great, because awesome. Black Lives Matter, another movement that came out of 2014. They, a gender-neutral singular pronoun. They was actually chosen as the word of the decade because they do a word of the decade as well, and that was chosen here. The other one's 2016, dumpster fire. It's a good one. You guys can go out and use that phrase. If something is chaotic, just say, wow, this is just a dumpster fire. 2017, fake news, which I'm sure many of you have heard. 2018, tender age shelter, referred to those shelters along the border when people were coming into the U.S. and they were basically taking the children. 2019, the my pronouns, the pronouns that people would want others to address them by. 2020, COVID, and 2021, insurrection. And getting some, again, thinking about the word of the year for 2022. It's interesting. So yeah, people talking about war, Ukraine, World Cup. I guess World Cup is coming at the end of this year. Monkeypox, Russian invasion. All right, stagflation, Putin. Seems like that's a polarize. Okay. Elon Musk buys Twitter for selfish reasons. Okay, yeah. He's definitely another person that's being talked about quite a bit lately. Elon Musk, Esther, invasion. All right, so that's interesting to see, again, where we're at. Again, it's not just a vocabulary lesson. I said it's a little bit of a cultural lesson because these are words that are related to things that were happening in the United States. Maybe in the future I'll do one from either Macmillan or Oxford. I told you they also do like a word of the list. I think theirs are more representative to the world in general. So maybe that's something we'll look at a little bit later on. But anyway, all of these words I think are useful, good to know, words that may come up in conversation. So I hope you guys, if you learn some new words, again, please let me know. Hit that like button. And also just one more quick little shout out if you guys want to know. Again, if you want to practice and improve your speaking skills, please check out that link down in the description if you want to join my speaking course, and you can use that code up here, right there, Speak20, to get $20 off the price. And if you have questions, I think it's down at the bottom of the page. You can, where is it? Email me at info@interactiveenglishvideos.com if you have questions, or if you'd like to take the course privately with me. That's also an option. So thank you guys again for joining me. Thank you, Lali, Takayo. Always great to see you. Gustav, thanks for being here. Abigail, Ava, Vivian, Mohammed, Angela, just trying to give some quick little shout outs. Ariane, Linda. I hope all of you, Jane, just keep going. I hope all of you enjoy the rest of the weekend, and